A black family walked into a restaurant, expecting a normal evening, but instead faced cruel discrimination. They were simply kicked out. The waiter, whose racism was apparent, had no idea that in a month they would return as the owners of the establishment. Now he had a choice: confront his bias or lose his job in a restaurant that had become a symbol of the fight for justice. What happened next would surprise even the most seasoned observers. But let's start from the beginning. The Carter family, newly moved to the neighborhood, decided to celebrate their new life at one of the most popular restaurants on the edge of town. It was a special place: cozy ambience, beautiful decor, and a reputation for being a great spot to enjoy family time. For Cassandra Carter, this evening symbolized new opportunities, a peaceful and happy life she and her husband Robert had worked hard to build for their children. Cassandra smiled at her husband, holding the hands of their two little ones, who were bouncing around their parents, excited for dinner at the new place. When they entered the restaurant, a young waiter greeted them. His neutral expression quickly shifted when he noticed the Carters. His eyes narrowed, and a look of disdain crossed his face, which he made no effort to hide. Instead of a warm greeting, he curtly said, "Sorry, but all our tables are booked." Cassandra scanned the room and immediately noticed several empty tables. Having encountered situations like this before, she calmly suggested they wait. "We're not in a rush. We can wait." But the waiter didn't move, his gaze growing colder. "I'm afraid you don't understand. We can't serve you. House rules," he said, as if explaining something obvious, beyond their comprehension. Robert instinctively reached for Cassandra's hand, holding back his anger. He wanted to say something, but knew it was better to maintain dignity. Cassandra, sensing her husband's tension, gently squeezed his hand. She nodded, signaling it was time to leave. Holding their heads high, the Carters turned and walked out of the restaurant, feeling the eyes of the other patrons on them. Everyone in the room seemed to be watching them leave, yet no one spoke up. No one offered support. Outside, the evening air was cool and damp, but it couldn't lift the heavy feeling of humiliation and injustice. This wasn't just about being denied service. It was another reminder that, even in daily life, they still faced prejudice and racism. Word of what happened spread quickly on social media, and local activists began whispering about the deep-rooted racism in the restaurant, something that had gone unnoticed by most until now. A month had passed since the humiliating refusal of service, but Cassandra and Robert weren't idle. Every evening they discussed the event, sharing their pain and contemplating the future. How should they respond to the injustice? They spoke with friends, and those who had faced similar situations supported them. Soon, these conversations sparked new ideas. To Cassandra's surprise, Robert admitted he had long dreamed of opening his own restaurant, a place where everyone, regardless of race or status, could feel at home. The unpleasant experience pushed him to act. This became a personal mission to create a place free of bias and equality for all. With the support of friends and family, they made a bold decision. Robert began exploring how to make his dream a reality. The restaurant that had humiliated them was up for sale due to financial issues. Seizing the opportunity, the Carters arranged a meeting with the owner and made a surprising offer. They bought the restaurant. The purchase shocked the staff. No one expected the Carters, who had been turned away, to become the new owners. The waiter who had refused them felt particularly uneasy, realizing his actions could haunt him. More staff members, hearing about the ownership change, wondered about their future. Preparations for the grand reopening were in full swing. The Carters poured their hearts into transforming the restaurant to reflect their values: respect, equality, and friendliness. The menu featured dishes celebrating cultural diversity. The restaurant was set to become a symbol of change for the Carters and the entire community. When the restaurant reopened under the Carters' leadership, word spread quickly. People were curious. Some wanted to see what had changed, while others wondered how the Carters would manage the place. The waiter who had refused them was especially uneasy, unsure of how they would react to his previous behavior. When he first saw Cassandra Carter as the new proprietor, his heart sank. She walked through the restaurant, observing the renovations. The interior was brighter and cozier, symbolizing a fresh start. The waiter expected an awkward encounter, but Cassandra approached with a light smile. "How do you like the new look of our restaurant?" she asked, glancing around. There was no malice in her voice, but the waiter felt guilty. He struggled to respond, embarrassed and uncertain. He knew he had a choice: either change his attitude or his days in the restaurant were numbered. Sensing his discomfort, Cassandra calmly said, "We aim to make this restaurant a place where everyone feels comfortable and respected. I'm giving you a chance to be part of the team, but if you can't share our values, you can leave." Her words were both a challenge and an opportunity. The waiter knew this was his moment of truth. He could either abandon his prejudices and become part of a new team, or he would have to go. Though difficult, he realized change was inevitable. Cassandra stood before him, calm and confident, giving him time to decide. In the weeks that followed, the restaurant under the Carters' leadership became a place that united people of all races, statuses, and professions. Patrons were drawn not only for the food, but for the inclusive atmosphere. The restaurant came to symbolize a new chapter for the community, where racism and prejudice had no place. For the Black community, it became more than just a dining spot. Here they felt welcome and accepted. Families and friends gathered, important conversations took place, and the Carters' example showed how the human spirit could overcome injustice. Every evening, the restaurant was filled with people celebrating, relaxing, or seeking support. It became a beacon of hope for those facing discrimination. The waiter, who once refused to serve the Carters, slowly grasped the changes around him. He saw how the Carters treated every customer with care and respect, regardless of race or background. These changes shocked him, but also led him to reflect on his past actions. At first, he felt like an outsider in this new environment. But watching the Carters build an inclusive business without bitterness, his resistance began to fade. He reflected on how his prejudices had impacted others. Inspired by the Carters, he decided to stay and change his mindset, striving to be better both professionally and personally. He worked hard to correct his mistakes, realizing that respect for others made his job easier and more meaningful. It was challenging, but he chose a new path. Thanks to the Carters, he learned that true success comes from respecting and accepting all people. The restaurant became a symbol of change and justice. The Carters showed that injustice can be overcome not with anger, but with dignity, kindness, and equality. Their example inspired others, proving that honest efforts can lead to real change.